This video is brought to you by Squarespace. If you need a website or domain, go to squarespace.com. Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's video. One of the most game-changing elements of a new camera technology is autofocus capability. The ability of modern cameras to nail the focus on a subject or on a scene is amazing these days. Yet I still get emails all the time saying my photos aren't sharp. Years ago, the advice on fixing this was often related to focus issues, but no more for modern cameras. So if focus isn't the problem, why are people still having sharpness problems? In this video, I'll give you a rundown of what's causing your sharpness issues if focus isn't the problem, and what to do about it in the field. If you stay till the end, I'll tell you why your photos shot from a car are all mush. My name is Simon D'Entremont and I'm a professional nature and wildlife photographer living in Eastern Canada. I make weekly videos giving you photo tips or taking you behind the scenes for nature photography. Subscribe if you want to see more. Okay, let's start off by understanding what sharpness is anyway, so we can better comprehend what's the problem we're trying to solve. Sharpness isn't just one thing. There's a couple of major factors involved. First, as many people know, is resolution. This is the ability to represent what's in the photo with the most amount of detail. High resolution photos come across as having more visible detail, a big part of sharpness. Second is micro contrast, or contrast at the edges of things. Technically, this is called acutance. Acutance is a measure of how sharply tonal transitions occur at the edges in an image. Now, in plain English, if a dark pixel sits next to a light pixel and the transition between them is abrupt, the image looks sharp, even if the actual resolution isn't very high. And for your information, when you sharpen your image in processing or add clarity, like in Lightroom, you're increasing the contrast, making it look sharper, but without any changes in resolution. And while people will often suggest that megapixels or resolution is the king of sharpness, I'd say otherwise. Give me a low resolution but high acutance image over a high resolution, low acutance image any day. Here's a 40 megapixel image with low acutance, and here's a 6 megapixel image with high acutance. You decide. But I've already made videos about the resolution issue, so we won't revisit them all here. Let's target acutance, what factors affect it, and what you can do about it. Some of these are related to your gear, but some your environment. Let's start with the gear ones. First, many people still underestimate the difference in sharpness that their lens has when you shoot it wide open, that is, at its widest aperture, versus its sweet spot. The issue here is that in optical design, lenses have fewer aberrations in the center of the lens than on the edges. Light doesn't like to be bent, and you need to bend it more on the edges of the lens. When you stop down the lens, that is, use smaller apertures, you use the best part of the lens. How do you use this in the field? Try shooting your lens at a smaller aperture than wide open. Try shooting that f2.8 lens at f4 or that f4 lens at f5.6. One stop will often add a decent amount of sharpness without losing all of your thin depth of field and raising your ISO too much. Now I'm onto one that you've heard before, shutter speed, but I'm going to add a new twist. First, for years we suggested you needed to have a minimum shutter speed hand holding a lens with a handy rule called the reciprocal rule. This was to control camera movement. So for a 50mm lens, we shot at 1/50, 1/50th of a second. Solid advice for years. But now with many cameras having stabilized sensors, you can get away with a lot less. But still, people have photos that aren't sharp. The issue is subject movement. And you may say, yes, I already know about that. You may say, I've been told that I should use 1/500th of a second to freeze kids on a bicycle, 1/1000th for pro sports, and 1/2000th for flying birds. I'm doing that, but I still have a problem. There are two issues at play here which we need to adjust. First, the closer you are to something, the faster the movement across the field of view. This can be either in being physically close or magnified through a long focal length lens. Both have the same effect. So longer lenses or closer subjects make motion through the field of view faster, meaning you need to increase the shutter speed for those scenarios. Another factor that increases the apparent motion in the field of view is having a smaller sensor. APS-C or crop sensors or micro four thirds or even the smallest sensors in bridge cameras capture a smaller field of view. So movement across the field of view speeds up. What do you do in these scenarios or closer subjects or smaller sensors? Increase your shutter speed. For smaller sensors, use 50% faster for crop sensors and double for micro four thirds. As for closer distances and longer lenses, increase the shutter speed by 50%. And a neat trick, when it comes to distances, you can reverse these factors. If your subject is very far away and the light is low, you can reduce your shutter speed by half and still get great results. Like here on this distant bald eagle at only 1/500th of a second. I'd like to thank the sponsor of this video, Squarespace. I built my own website using Squarespace and it was really easy. A website is just a great way to have a professional place online where you can show off your work, your service, or your brand. Social media are often showing you or your work in short clips or photos and thumbnails, and sometimes makes it difficult to monetize, as they may not want links to external sites. There are lots of useful templates, including ones for specific genres like photography, which is mine. Or, if you're more daring and artistic, you can go outside the templates using the new AI feature called Squarespace Blueprint to help you personally curate your own build. It's also a great way to monetize your work by setting up an online store so you can take payments by credit card or PayPal from all over the world. And now with a new added feature of buy now and pay later with ClearPay and Afterpay. Go to squarespace.com to sign up for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Simon for 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. The next issue, which is a sharpness killer, is heat haze. This is technically turbulence-induced refractive distortion. This is the same effect that creates mirages in a desert. When the ground or surface water is heated, it radiates heat upwards. And as different temperatures of air mix in layers, any light passing through the different refractive indexes of the different temperatures makes them bend and curve. Here's me in Kenya trying to photograph elephants on the dry Amboseli lake bed. It's mush. And using long telephoto lenses made it worse, as I needed to shoot through more distortion. This effect also happens over fields, pavements, and bodies of water. So what to do? One option is to shoot earlier in the day if you can. The worst effects accumulate during the day as the land gets hotter, so earlier in the day has less of this effect. Second, find the shade if possible, like a cool alley in the city or under the canopy of the trees out in the wild. The cooler areas will have less of this distortion. Third, use shorter lenses and get closer. Using long lenses makes you shoot through more haze, making it worse. Use a shorter focal length and get closer to minimize this phenomenon. Fourth, over water, you'd be surprised how much getting up a little bit higher will help. I was shooting ducks once with a low angle just inches above the water on a really cold day over relatively warmer water. The photos were mush. I got up just a few feet, maybe 50 centimeters, and the images got much sharper. Turns out the distortion was only a shallow layer, maybe 6 or 8 inches or 15 or 20 centimeters above the water. And finally, use it to some artistic effect. If I use one of my elephant shots that has terrible haze, I'm including more story to my photo, demonstrating the incredible journeys that elephants must undertake to find water under harsh conditions. The more elements you can add to your photo, the better. By the way, follow me on Instagram and Facebook and sign up for my email list and download my guide on shooting backlit for free. Now the next issue is related to the previous one, but not exactly the same, and that's atmospheric distortion that's not caused by refraction. This one is just caused by the fact that air contains dust, pollen, humidity, and pollution. These scatter light, reducing contrast. And unfortunately, sharp lenses don't help. Here are some photos of mine with the super sharp Canon 600mm f4 in Kenya. And unfortunately, the sharpness just isn't there. We were in a park near a city, and we just couldn't get sharp photos no matter how hard we tried. What can you do? First, in the same way that you tackle heat haze, getting closer and shooting earlier in the day help. Secondly, if you can control when you go out, after a nice rain is about the best time you can go. It really cleans up the air and can make a huge difference. Another factor that really makes a difference in sharpness is the quality of the light. Now this one's often very underestimated and one that took me a long time to understand myself. I was taking photos of subjects from quite close with good glass, and the photos just weren't sharp. You see, acutance, as we saw earlier, is the difference between edges. This factor is the most prominent when the meeting of shapes or lines has a very bright edge next to a very dark edge. How is this best maximized in a photo? A brightly lit edge next to a dark shadow. How do you get that? direct light, but not from directly behind you, as there's no shadow created when the light and the camera have the same vantage point. What you need is side light, like here, compared to here. See how this creates little shadows next to little bright areas? And the worst scenario is scattered light, like on a cloudy day. The clouds make the light bounce all over the place, coming in from many angles, which means no bright spots and no shadows. Like this photo of mine, which is a pretty good photo, but sharpness is not its defining feature. So bright direct light from the side is best, cloudy day is the worst. And I promised you a bonus tip, shooting from the car. I see this one all the time. You'll go out in cold temperatures in a nice warm car. You see something you like to photograph, maybe an owl sitting in a tree or a beautiful sunset. You take a photo through your car window. You come home, mush. What happened? Well, man-made heat distortion is what happened. The warm car is creating a radiating bubble of heat plumes around your vehicle. And what's worse, when you open your window to shoot through, you give it a great vent through which to throw even more warm air. The solution, and what I do when I'm driving around looking for wildlife, is I dress warmly and keep the heater off in my car. That way, the inside and outside air is close to the same temperature. And a related problem, shooting over the warm hood of your car. Go beyond the hood or behind the vehicle. I hope you can use these tips the very next time you go out so you too can come home with your own unique and amazing photos. I know you can do it.